Good evening. Today is Thursday, September 3, 2020. I would like to call the Village of Vernon Village Board meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call and open meeting law compliance check.
President Carol Fortner.
Present.
Trustee Jim Sloney.
Present.
Trustee Gary Wildy.
Present.
Trustee Fred Mahalik.
Present.
Trustee Lorene Dashick. Present. Mr. President, note for the record, you do have a quorum of your village board. Also note for the record that Attorney John Macy is here and also DPW Director John Henneberry is here. Mr. President, the agenda was posted inside and outside the Vernon Town Hall to the media on the Town of Vernon's website. You are in full compliance with the open meetings law.
Thank you. We're on number 4 on the agenda. I'll make an announcement of a possible closed session. Motion to go into closed session, consideration and possible action on a motion to convene into executive session under Wisconsin State Statutes 19.851E, deliberating of negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically shared services with the villages of Big Bend and Waukesha and the town of Mukwonago, and cooperative plans with the village of Mukwonago and the town of Waterford, and Wisconsin Statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice considering strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, more specifically Scenic Ridge of Big Bend Homeowners Association. Included in closed session will be the village board, village attorney, village clerk treasurer, and the village attorney may participate by telephone, although he's here in person. Motion will require a roll call vote. No action will be taken in a closed session. Next up, public comments. There are no members of the public present, so we will go to number 6, miscellaneous matters. The first item up is the Charter Ordinance 2020-01 and 2020-02. We'll take them in order. We'll start with 01. I did ask Attorney Macy to be here. He was here when we hashed out our charter ordinance. We had a special meeting and gave direction to get charter ordinances drafted, and they went to Attorney Macy for review. He had some suggestions, and so I know Mr. Sloney, Trustee Sloney, was working on it. I looked through it, and we'll start with 2020-01 there. Attorney Macy suggested that we keep it simple and include only those items that would be more of a permanent in nature as opposed to, for example, procedures for meetings. And so everybody got a clean copy, right? I took the liberty of taking what we had done, the marked copy, and made a clean copy, okay? And took out the meeting procedures and made Attorney Macy's other suggestions. I think you got a clean copy, and then how it was cleaned up, you know, taking what was taken out and what was changed. And I took the liberty of doing that. Obviously, we didn't have a consensus or complete discussion on whether meeting procedures should be in or out. That was a detail that was left until later. So we'll open it up for questions first before we make motions. If there's any questions on what I did or what Attorney Macy, he's here so you can ask him questions, was recommendation or anything he might have said or changed that you need clarified.
Well, my first question would be, Karen, did you get the numbering straightened out? That this is a separate series from the other ones?
That's a great question, Trustee Sloney. The charter ordinance, that's something I just recently learned, charter ordinances are standalone ordinances, so they will be standalone charter ordinances, and then your other ordinances that the board adopts will go in succession of those ordinances. But that's my understanding, correct, Attorney Macy?
Well, technically, the state statute says you have to chronologically keep going. A number of years ago, clerks wisely started to put the year and then the number, because otherwise it was even harder to document the ordinances. I had advised the clerk, as she has indicated, that many communities want to keep the charter ordinances separate. They'll still be in chronological order, but you want to be able to find them quickly and efficiently. And so it's sort of a reminder when you go to look at the list that that was a charter ordinance. So that is our recommendation.
And I think electronically on the electronic files, we'll have a little folder for ordinances, and then we'll have a folder for charter ordinances.
In two places.
In two
We have
places.
a separate file for all incorporation issues, one of which, all your resolutions and ordinances will go there, and then in our ordinance file, so we'll duplicate it so it's never missed. And it'll always be in the book with a little tab saying charter. For years to come, because that's an important thing.
So further questions? And again, for the benefit of the public, we're repealing our present day 84-1 and 84-2 and recreating it. 84-1 is administration, talks about being incorporated as a village, what our authorities are, legal posting and newspaper. 84-2 is our village board, and as we've discussed at prior meetings, we're reducing the size from the statutory number of 7 for villages to 5, which is the old town board size, and numbering the trustee seats 1 through 4, just like the old town of Vernon supervisor seats were numbered 1 through 4, and we just kept the same number 1 through 4 as the town did. Of course, town chairman just becomes village president under the statute, and 2-year terms, just like in a town. So that stays, and we staggered, since we're all up for election next April, or all the positions are up for election next April 21, to stagger the 2-year terms. We put trustee 2 and 4 on 2-year terms and 1 and 3 on a 1-year term, which will correspond to the way the old town of Vernon voted 1 through 4. And that'll just be for 1 year, 2021, and then it's 2 years and you're off you go. Just like before, compensation is set by the board. We've set that back in June at the same salaries as we had before as a town. So that's kind of the summary. Any further questions? Otherwise, I'll make a motion to approve and adopt Charter Ordinance number 2020-01.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
One other last question was, I think it's on, I don't know what the J, I believe it is. It's on the 4th page, top of the 4th page, talking about the quorum and majority.
Yeah, though that provision, what you're referring to, is in the meeting procedures which we removed from the charter ordinance that we're voting on right now. But those provisions, I think, are important. To me, they're important enough to put on a future agenda to amend our regular ordinance to get some of these things clarified. And part of the things that I was worried about on meeting procedures on quorums and voting is to make sure we were clear when we have less than everyone here, how the quorum works, how the voting works.
At 5 members, mathematically, it's gonna come out to the same, you gotta have 3 guys, 3 people.
Right.
Sorry. But at 7, if you had 7 members, then it's a different story, because you could be down 1, but now you gotta have a majority on a lot of the votes. And is it a majority of your total board, or majority of the people present?
Right, and Attorney Macy, when he looked at that provision, said typically it's well, let me back up. A quorum is a majority of your members, so on a 5-person board, 3 persons could be a quorum, and then when it comes to voting, it's just those members present and voting. So at that point, a majority becomes 2 out of 3. And that's one of the points where
Right.
people start arguing about, well, what is exact, how do you count, how do you figure a majority when 2 out of 5 are gone, when you have a quorum, and as Attorney Macy pointed out in his comments, which we're not voting on tonight anyway, because
Right.
my motion is to remove all of that. That's something that, in our existing ordinances, I think we need to clarify, just for the point of clarification. Any further discussion? Well, it's a charter ordinance, so we have a roll call vote.
President Carl Furter,
Yes.
trustee Jim Solani,
Yes.
trustee Gary Weldy,
Yes.
trustee Fred Mahalik,
Yes.
trustee Lorraine Dashick. Yes. Mr. President, note for record that all board members voted unanimously in favor of Charter Ordinance 2020-1.
Thank you.
Now, does that make the effective date today?
Okay, let's go through that. We'll have the same question on the next one.
Yes, we will.
So whether we talk about it on this one or the next one, we're talking about it on both of them. The effective date is 60 days after publication. We can publish by posting, and we intend to post it tonight
Yes, in 4 places
in
today.
4 places, and it's it doesn't become effective until the 60th day afterwards, which is, in my
I'm sorry,
counting,
Carl.
is
how many-
November 2nd.
What day?
60 days after
60.
posting.
Thank
So
you.
it's November 2nd. Would be the effective date.
Okay.
So with that, we can go to 2020-02. Now, this is and remember, we did reach consensus to have 2 charter ordinances. The first one covering the board, the second one covering appointed officials, and in particular, the village clerk and the village treasurer. Under state law, if we do nothing, say nothing, those positions are separate and elected. And so, from our charter ordinance meeting, we said we really need to make a decision whether they're to be elected or appointed, and if we want them elected, you just let it go. If you want them appointed, you need it in a charter ordinance, so we said that should be a second charter ordinance. In the event, the electors, the residents, want to challenge one or both of these charter ordinances, we thought, well, if we're okay with the board because we're just continuing, let's make sure that one is not challenged. If they're not okay with the clerk treasurer because they want it elected, then they can just challenge the 02 without upsetting how we're going to elect the board. Otherwise, it'll be a 7-person board and no numbered seats, and so we split it on that theory, and I think we reached the unanimous consensus to do that, to split them. And so this, again, if it's approved and posted, published tonight, the 60 days will be November 2nd. The 60 days is also important, I just mentioned the possible referendum, is because the residents do have the statutory right to produce signatures or petition demanding that the charter ordinance goes to referendum. And they have 60 days to do it. And 7% of the votes cast in the former town of Vernon for governor at the last governor's election, and that's roughly 330, 350 signatures. Right, that's what we calculated before. And so again, the charter ordinance will become effective November 2nd if there's a petition that's valid challenging the charter ordinance, and then it goes to referendum. In the meantime, the charter ordinance sits there. and it's got no effect. So the result of that, it seems to me, is if such a petition is validly presented, where it'll go to elected, at least this first round in April of 2021, as we discussed at our ordinance meeting from before, charter ordinance meeting from before. So this was drafted, I think, with the direction or the consensus of the board. Separate positions, village clerk, village treasurer, statutory duties, plus whatever is, described in the job description. And it's pretty simple, drafted. Clerk, treasurer, and then separation is in there at the top of page 2. And then the only problem I was having with all of this is what the effective date was. We never decided what the effective date of this ordinance is. I just got done saying, well, the earliest it can be effective, and it will be effective if there's no referendum, if it's adopted and published tonight, November 2nd. But when those positions get separated, okay, is a different question and can be put in this charter ordinance, a date or a method or a date. As it stands now, back in June, we appointed a clerk treasurer combined until the next election, April 2021. And then we said, unless it's changed by charter ordinance. So that's where we are now.
Could you talk through the different options that might be available to the board? Does everybody understand? So now you have to make a policy decision, but I think it would be wise to hear what your options are.
Okay.
The earliest anything probably.
Earliest can be November 2nd, at the earliest.
Absolutely.
And it can be later. Okay, but if you think about what we're doing here, we have a combined position, clerk treasurer. We have November 2nd at the earliest. I would think we'd almost have to go through at the latest, next April election. And you could just punt it to the next board, I suppose. The treasurer, responsible for taxes, I don't think it's a very wise idea to separate those positions in the middle of a tax season. So your options are sometime November 2nd or after, with the hesitancy, at least on my part, is don't make it, January 1 in the middle of the tax season or something. You either make it before tax season starts or after. Or all the way up to April 30. So you set a date. What I was struggling with is, okay, what happens if a referendum request comes in, and how does that affect that date? And I think Attorney Macy and I were talking about that. This is one of the reasons I invited him for tonight's meeting, because it's very easy to get confused in what happens. But the easiest, simple thing is set a date. No referendum request comes in. That's the date the positions are separated. That's the date we better hire a clerk and hire a treasurer. And it can be, yeah.
In the hiring of the clerk and the treasurer, do they have, there's nothing, as I read this, unless I missed it, there's nothing in here that says they have to be a town of Vernon resident. Is that everybody's understanding, or is there something implicit in here that I didn't catch?
Do not have to be a resident of Vernon,
It's better. Yes.
which is one of the advantages people give to having a clerk or treasurer appointed as opposed to elected. Elected, you have to be a resident.
Right.
That's one of the advantages of appointing. Trustee Solani, you're.
Yeah, well, in the original draft, we had a whereas. In fact, it was the last whereas in the original draft that talked about authorizing an ordinance to repeal and recreate the office of an appointed clerk and appointed treasurer. Now, that was taken out. I wasn't sure about that one, about that whereas anyhow, because it didn't reference a specific ordinance number. You know, did we have one?
I don't think so. Attorney Macy, you didn't. Did we have a separate ordinance combining the positions and
No, those were all directives from the
annual meeting? Right.
I don't believe there was an ordinance.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Right, it's, just as a refresher, in case you don't remember, what happened was, we always had a separate treasurer, we always had a separate clerk, they were always elected, okay? In April, in the annual meeting, the Town of Vernon annual meeting in April 2018, the residents present at that meeting, on a 13-3 vote, voted to make the clerk appointed, the treasurer position appointed, and then voted to combine the positions into a clerk treasurer. The earliest that would become effective is the next election, which was April of 2019. So in April of 2019, I got the years right? Did you follow? Yeah. April of 2019, the positions were combined. Oh, yeah, that's right. Were combined and it became appointed.
Okay,
And
but
our
that was never,
clerk treasurer was appointed
yep. No,
in April of 2019.
So at that time, they were no longer elected positions. They were appointed.
Right, correct.
Just to be clear.
The elected treasurer and the elected, former elected treasurer sitting next to you, and the former elected clerk, terms expired in April of 2019. So after they expired, then they became appointed. And that explains why there's no ordinance, Attorney Macy, right? Because it was a directive from the annual meeting, which was in the powers of the town's annual meeting under the statutes.
I don't remember any ordinance being drafted.
I don't think there wasn't any, yeah, when we looked, so it's a long-winded answer to
So you
your
couldn't
question.
reference it because it didn't exist.
that's why we couldn't find it.
Okay, now, back to, is there further questions, or should we, I tried to explain the date issue. Where I was getting bogged down, and we'll have to fix, a sentence in 58-3.5 somehow or another in letter A, which is the effective date of the separation of the positions. What happens if we fill in a date, a fixed date, John, after November 2nd, and then we have, if there's no referendum challenge, that's the date. The positions are separated. If there is a challenge, then it seems to me the position's going to be elected, go separate, an elected position, April of 2021, for a 2-year term. Just because a referendum was filed. And let's assume it's all valid and anything.
I mean, there are some who would argue that since your status quo, the status quo continues, and that, but we're not going there, we're taking the procedure that, as you've outlined. First, I just want to make that comment. Sure. It gets a little, as you indicated when we tried to talk about this, it gets a little complicated because if the referendum is asked for, the ordinance is delayed. If the referendum fails, the ordinance goes into effect after the election.
Okay, failure meaning, the vote is, let's make it clear because I think I have it backwards in my mind. The referendum is asked what? Whether this should be adopted or whether it should be.
Let's check that. That's what I.
Right, when you say fails, I'm thinking, okay, so the
Yeah.
ordinance fails.
Yeah.
That might not be right, though. I could have it backwards. So hang on, let's not complicate this any more than it is.
Let's see what the vote is.
Well,
It's but regardless, you know, it's.
Right.
If somebody contests this ordinance, they're going to say, you know, they're,
Well, the contest is, the demand is, we want a referendum vote on this charter ordinance,
right.
okay?
And the reason they were doing that was because they don't want it. So they're gonna be looking
Right.
for it to fail.
They're gonna be looking for the charter ordinance to fail. That's the way I think about it.
Yeah, okay, that's
So that the ordinance never goes into effect.
right.
And why the referendum is pending, it's just, it sits there.
Right.
So Attorney Macy is looking at 660101.
I am 66.0101, but it doesn't specifically state. It says the charter ordinance does not take effect until 60 days after its passage and publication. If within that 60-day period, a petition conforming to the requirements of 8.40 and signed by the number of electors of the city or the village equal to not less than 7% of the votes cast in the city or village for governor at the last general election is filed in the office of the clerk of the city or village demanding the ordinance be submitted to a vote to electors, it may not take effect until it's submitted to a referendum and approved by a majority of the electors. So,
Okay, so when we say approved, that means the ordinance itself is approved. And if it's not approved, then the ordinance is not approved and it's gone,
Right.
right? So I don't know if that's failed, you know, the
But-
referendum, well,
correct.
whatever.
but if it's approved, so that would be the date that they would be separated and appointed.
Right, and
But
I
it
guess,
can't undo the election terms, right? If we've gone to the election in April and elected people, you know, a lot of final research will have to be done. We're assuming that if the referendum is called for, it won't occur before December 1st.
how could it? It couldn't,
Right.
because the 60 days ends on November 2nd. Let's say they get it done on October 1st, you still, well, I suppose then you could order it off 70 days. No, you couldn't. It's
Well,
70 days to order.
I think it's 8 weeks to get it.
Yeah, it's at least 70 days, so,
So if the referendum is requested, the vote won't occur before December 1st. That's when nomination papers go out. There'll be no ordinance in effect. We're taking the position without further research that we're defaulting to the current law that they're elected. And so they would be elected in April. The referendum could even occur in February at the primary, but it's still, I don't think, without checking with the election board and a lot of research that we're not gonna do until unless somebody asks for the referendum. Best case, simplest analysis to say they get elected in April, they serve 2 years, but then the ordinance is in place, and then it would go to separated and appointed. If the referendum passes and the ordinance goes into effect, we still can't undo the December 1st date and the April election in all likelihood. But that's our current analysis.
right, so then we would
But
know.
we're a little far afield. What we're trying to decide is,
Right,
if the ordinance goes into effect on November 2nd, no referendum is called for, when would you like the positions to be split and, you know, continue to be appointed? So let's just say, when would you want the positions to be split? You have the November 2nd date, you have January 1st, you have the election date, or as the chairman said, you could say the board elected in April should appoint the clerk and treasurer. So, and then you would say like May 1st or something. There's no right or wrong date, just like there's no right or wrong whether they be appointed, elected, separate, or combined. You each have to formulate your opinion. So I asked the chairman what the options were. The options would be November 2nd, right? Other obvious potential dates would be January 1st. The chairman's already argued why he doesn't think that's a good date in the middle of the tax collection season. The next date, you know, arguably any date up until the election. And then the last one would be way down the line, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but saying defer to whomever is elected in April to appoint the clerk treasurer. Clerk and treasurer. Mr. Chairman, trustee Dashik had her hand up. I didn't know if you saw it.
My glasses steam up and I was writing down
In the
those dates.
meantime, we can move forward to design the description and post the position and start a hiring process or not?
Yes,
We can, okay.
you could do that immediately, but, you know, does it pay until at least the 60 days is up? Because,
We wouldn't make the start date until that 60 days, that's for sure.
yeah. But just like we had the situation in the village of Waukesha recently, where they were trying to make it interim or permanent, and we got very few people, if any, who applied for an interim position. They all said, if we're leaving our job, we want to have some certainty that, you know, we're gonna
Yeah,
get it.
yeah.
But they have the same problem. The women that were hired, the two individuals who were hired, both understand that if a referendum was requested and it goes to elected, that we can't do anything about that. They just didn't want interim. They said, we'll let you hire us, and if it stays appointed and separate and combined, appointed and combined, you know, we'll take the job, but not interim. Just we'll take the job. I don't know if that was helpful or not, but hard to find somebody until you know what the position you're offering is.
Right, and I would say, what would you consider, you're the former treasurer, what would you consider tax season, like December 1st through February 15th?
Well, the tax bills come out December 10th or after,
Okay,
and, I mean, obviously, unless they're a municipal treasurer already or have done the job already, they're going to start same way I did. You kind of learn as you go. I mean,
well, one of
my
the,
first tax season, I didn't know how to do it either.
well, one of the advantages of appointed, as we've discussed, is you can hire an experienced person or
You
try to
could-
find them.
Yeah, and that would make it much easier for them. Then it, you know, you could have a start date by December 1st. You could have,
Or December 10th or something?
well,
Or
okay,
December
November
1st.
2nd is our first,
It cannot be any earlier than November
it
2nd.
can't be any earlier.
And
So
remember, we have an
on
election in
2nd,
November.
We know if we can hire or not.
We know if we can hire or not. Yes, we will know whether we're going to get, well, we will know for a certainty whether a referendum petition has been filed or it hasn't.
Right.
And
And
remember,
in the
the election
meantime-
is November 3rd, the big election. Okay, so,
Just my edification, the referendum would be whether they're elected or appointed.
no, the referendum the petition would say, we want charter, I'm paraphrasing, of course, I'm not gonna give legal advice on how to draft a appropriate petition to challenge Charter Ordinance 2020-02. But the petition would demand that, or request that Charter Ordinance 2020-02 go to referendum prior to its approval or adoption.
Of them being elected or appointed or combined.
No, the referendum is on the charter ordinance, period.
They're blessing what you're proposing by
Right.
the charter ordinance. That's the easiest way to say it.
Right.
We agree with the recommendation of our current village board to have them be separate and appointed. That's the policy decision that 4 out of 5 of you made. I think one of you, trustee Wildy, wanted them combined still. But 4 out of 5 of you voted to present this to the public as the option you're recommending. Both appointed, separate. Fair enough, right?
Yep.
So
Right.
they're voting on whether they agree with your recommendation.
Right, they're
That's
not,
the simplest
Yeah.
way to
I
say
just
it.
wanted to
Yeah.
We were talking about all these permutations, and I wanted to understand what that referendum
Right.
would be.
Right, and just to make it, they're not voting on whether it's elected or that's not the vote, or whether it's combined or not, or separated.
That's what I
They're,
wanted to
yeah,
voting on
right,
this.
they're voting on whether this is up or it's down.
They don't,
Right.
And,
they would be voting to disagree or to.
yeah,
Well, actually
it's all or
disagree.
nothing. They can't say, well, I like this, but not
No,
like
no,
that. I
it's
like it
gotta be
appointed,
all.
but I don't like them separate.
gotta be the
No,
whole
it's
thing.
either up or down.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I like them, I don't like the appointed, I like them separate, but I don't
Yeah.
like them appointed, I'd rather
That's-
elect them.
that's
No,
down the road.
that's
Yeah.
that's not what you're voting on either on the
Right,
referendum.
Right,
And essentially, we're gonna run out of time if that gets filed, and it's going to end up being an elected position in April then?
Well, that's what Attorney Macy was saying, because nomination papers, the analysis is the nomination papers for the April election start, I don't know, December first or
They do.
thereabouts. December first, actual, okay. And if someone files a petition for a referendum on this charter ordinance, you have to, it stops in time. It doesn't become effective until after the referendum is approved. It might never become effective if the referendum shoots it down. And it takes at least 70 days to even get a special election up to vote on a referendum.
Let
But-
me answer the question slightly different. We are taking the position without doing all of the research that without the charter ordinance, they're elected. There is an argument because there's a sentence that says, all ordinances and, procedures and laws, I'm paraphrasing, remain in place until you adopt an ordinance. Well, there's no ordinance, so someone could argue they stay combined and appointed. I don't think that's a really good argument, and I'm not recommending that until we have to address it more specifically. I'm saying my sense of the law, without doing the detailed research, is that you would have to elect them. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. I just wanna make it clear, because we could be here 45 days from now and say, all right, do you still wanna stick with that, or do you wanna take the position they're appointed until this is resolved?
But nothing says that we can't start the process of interviewing and with a start date of November 2nd or 2 weeks after that.
Or 3 weeks after that, or a month after that, if you want to start December first, whatever. The only
We can't
difficulty
move forward.
with that is the interview and the potential appointee, or clerk or treasurer, is that they'll say, well, you can't guarantee them they're gonna start that day until after November 2nd, right?
Right, so I'd
But
say
you can
2
still
weeks after that.
interview, you can still get your job descriptions, you can still do all of that, sure.
I need to give what the dates are,
Yep.
so
And
it's
you
not
can
that-
say we can't do anything until
That's
after
right.
November 2nd.
Right.
So make a start date 2 weeks after November 2nd. That way, if they need to leave a job, they give 2 weeks' notice.
Or whatever dates, any dates, any sense.
I'm just checking the calendar here and see how those dates fall. I'm checking, let's see if we can reach any other, so we've had trustee Dashik say 2 weeks after November 2nd, which is November 16th. Any other ideas? My idea, of course, I stated mine. I said either before December 1st or 10th or, tax season, or, after February 15th or whenever the final settlements are. I mean, so that's before, at least. Trustee Solani, you have any?
I would go for April.
Could you explain that, Jim?
I wouldn't-
Go for April.
I wouldn't make any changes until April.
Oh, so we wouldn't hire a replacement, or we
Like-
wouldn't hire anybody until April 5th, whatever.
You can't hire anybody ahead of time until you actually have a date, right? The only date we know pretty sure is April. But I like the idea of leaving it for the board.
The new board.
Yeah, exactly, for the new board. For the people that are gonna have to deal with however it comes out. Hopefully it'll be us. Maybe not.
In that same idea, I think putting that on a new board, depending what the composition of the new board is, will they have enough background as to what it is that's trying to be accomplished? And that's why moving it back to either November or after the tax season, to me, makes more sense, okay? And their employment at will.
April's after the tax season, right?
Yeah, but what I'm going to is the board, okay? The people that are gonna, it's the personnel committee that's gonna make a recommendation to the board, and then the board is gonna make a decision on that individual.
For the actual hiring.
Yeah. But I would prefer that not to be coincident with the election in that window
That's
for the new board.
what
That's why we're discussing it, okay?
Right.
Right,
Right,
Right.
so to flesh that out a little bit more, the election, looking at my calendar, is April 6th. The new board would take office, I do believe, April 20th?
that's,
The third Tuesday, which would be April 20th. And if you're gonna expect the new board to hire, right? Separate and hire is what you're saying, trustee Swanee, I think.
yes, sir.
So it would be 30, 60 days or something to post and hire, interview and hire. So your effective date would be probably into May or June something, or?
Right.
So you would be, 45 days would be, June 7th, or you can make it June 15th, 22nd.
That'd be fine.
I'm just trying to pin down a date if that's where we're headed. A date that makes sense as we're discussing this.
Well, it would give us the ability to talk to potential applicants with a date that we know we'd be able to go with one way or the other.
Well, you'll know by November 2nd, Jim.
Well, yeah, this goes to more who's making the hire? The existing board, us, or the board that's elected on April 6th? That's your point,
That was
right?
really,
That's your
right.
point, is who makes the decision.
right.
And in my opinion, I think it should be the existing board.
Okay, so do you have a date?
Well, it would be November 10th, and understood.
Or she said November 16th.
November 16th.
16th, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm just,
So that's fine.
That's well past the date that we know.
because pretty soon we're gonna have November 10th, 16th, we'll have 5 dates here in a minute, but that, we're trying to reach, kind of, to narrow the date.
And it's well enough in advance of the tax season, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be also a good opportunity for those people to get acclimated. I got a feeling that, one of the two, okay, will be a very strong candidate, okay, and the other one, right now, we don't know.
Trustee Wildy.
I have no particular date in mind because I'm not going to vote for this ordinance to begin with, so you know my position.
So you would rather just go
I-
to an elected position, I take it?
No, I want to see appointed position, but combined, so I think that's where the referendum would come in,
Clerk Treasurer.
yes.
Well, maybe somebody will file a petition to do that.
Well, that's up to them, I don't have any control over that,
Like I said, by November 2nd, we'll know.
absolutely.
What do you think you'll know, by November 2nd.
that there won't be a petition presented in favor of not approving this ordinance. That's what I think what the November date will tell us.
Gary,
Yeah,
your
that's all it'll
position
tell
is-
us, because if you do have a referendum posted late
Then that's,
October,
that's gonna
you're
change.
not
the
gonna
whole-
know
it's gonna change.
anything
Yeah,
other than it's potentially up in the air.
yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
change everything. And
Yeah.
if there's a petition, if there's a referendum request, that'll change the whole kit and caboodle as far as the time goes.
So it's,
Actually, the time frame of that happening, won't that just force it to become an elected position?
As I've indicated, that's our current thinking, but research could be done if the board decides that whether or not you want to argue that the status quo remains until the charter position, not the state statute. I took the position that the state statute would control. There are others who think, when, in this research, without having done all the research, and I don't think you're gonna find any law on it, to be perfectly honest. It's, you know, in that, there's that sentence that says everything's, and I'm using the word status quo, all the codes, all the ordinances, all the contracts, everything remains the same, and that would mean that it's appointed and combined to Gary's argument.
Right.
So there's two arguments to be made. We're on the track of that it's going to be elected, right?
That
That's
is-
what we're
that-
assuming, but if somebody asks for the referendum, we may have to revisit that. But I don't wanna muddy the water, I'm just saying 45 days from now, if somebody's asked for a referendum, you may wanna reconsider that idea. I'm not saying you could or you should, I'm just saying, to be honest with you, there's one in our office who's been researching this, and he says, I'm not convinced yet that it's absolutely has to be elected in April.
John, you just confused me a little bit. We're looking for this to be an appointed position, okay?
Yep.
And you just threw in elected position.
Because that's what the state statute says, is it's elected unless you have a charter ordinance.
Right.
Right.
Right,
And if they challenge our charter ordinance,
Right.
if they file a petition and challenge our charter ordinance, then it doesn't exist and it would go revert back to the state statute. Yes or no?
Well, that's the position we're taking at the
position that
moment.
you're taking right now.
I just don't want anyone to be surprised if 45 days from now, we're sitting here in closed session and somebody says, they've asked for a referendum, do we have to, you know, elect somebody in, you know, in April? That's my current position, that yes, the state statutes control. Fair enough? I mean,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fair enough.
we didn't wanna
I'm
spend
not gonna
hours and
argue with
hours
that.
and hours researching a potentiality that may never occur.
Right.
If nobody challenges it, everybody agrees with the decision, the recommendation, which is what I consider a charter ordinance, that's the recommendation of the existing officials, and the public gets to.
Right, and we didn't have to write this charter ordinance, we could have gone just with what the state statute says would happen, that it would become elected and separated.
Right, and I understand what Attorney Macy is saying, but I think that, and I happen to agree, I think it does, I think the better reading of the statutes is it's going to go to elected even 45 days from now. I don't know how much more we're gonna, I don't know that there's any law on it. And when you, in the context of all the state statutes, what Attorney Macy is saying, that's true. Will your ordinance carry over? Well, they have to, otherwise you'd have 0 ordinances when you incorporate as a village. Your contracts carry over, of course, otherwise all the contracts are terminated. I mean, you know, of course there's gonna be a provision like that, but there's also specific provisions dealing with the village board, 7 members, 2-year terms. Specific members, or specific provisions on a clerk, on a treasurer, what their duties are, how they're elected, 2-year terms, and all of that is specific in the statutes. And that's why, you know, I think the conclusion I'm reaching is the same as Attorney Macy is, hey, I think it is gonna go to elected. Now, sure, maybe you could develop a position otherwise, but the other thing you gotta keep in mind, too, is if there is a referendum petition filed, it's status quo, so it stays combined, clerk treasurer, until we have that referendum. Unless something else, the board does something else.
discussing what date to put in the charter ordinance. The November, the December, you heard them all.
Right.
Where are
So far,
at?
we got November 16th, which is before tax time, and June 15th, which would mean the board elected in April of '21 is gonna do the interviewing and hiring. If it's November 16th, the current board, or at least the committee, is gonna be, of some, one or more, is gonna have to do the interviewing and hiring. The board will have to hire eventually. And that means job description posting, sorting the resumes, calling people in, telephone interviews, and, narrowing the list down and having them, well, I don't know about everyone here, but has hired people as part of the board, and it's no small chore to do that. And that all will have to occur if it's November 16th, so that we're ready to go on November 16th. And the same thing with June 15th, the new board takes office and they're gonna have to start doing it immediately. Unless you push the June 15th even further back. And because it's written in this charter ordinance, these charter ordinances are not necessarily so easy to amend, because every time you do it, there's another chance for a referendum on the revised charter ordinance.
Yep.
And so we've got November 16th, we've got June 15th, we've got trustee Wildy, he's voting against it, but if it passes, Gary, do you have a preference of what date it
Then
says?
I would go with Jim's idea,
I'm sorry, Gary,
in April, Jim's recommendation.
what is your,
June 15th, as it turns out.
15, because he said April.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, by the time.
My original
Yeah,
proposal was April, but the intent was so that the new board,
yep,
if it's any different, would have the opportunity to pick their own people.
yep.
And Attorney Macy, to confuse matters more, if it does go to referendum, status quo, but let's say we run the referendum, we don't have a special election, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing that, but the first time we could have an election where that referendum would be on the ballot
April.
would be February,
Oh.
20th or something, the primary date for the spring. If
There's a primary.
Well, there is gonna be a primary.
Is it?
There might be nothing on the ballot, but there will be a primary,
Oh,
right? And it's,
Yeah.
primaries,
yeah,
and a lot of times we have one thing on the ballot.
yeah, which we had this last time.
Right.
So,
If we run it on there and it's passes, so the ordinance goes into effect, do we need to put a date in there for that? Because all of a sudden, it's effective.
60 days after that, wouldn't it be?
No.
No?
Date of the election. No, I don't know that you need a date in there. We may
Or
have to
60 day-
clarify,
well, maybe we need to find out what will rule if we do this and get a definitive answer. Is it going to revert back to elected, separated positions or not?
It might be
I don't think the election board, dealing with everything they're dealing with the presidential, will assist us in getting an opinion on that at the moment. The question should be posed to the election board at some point, or the staff, do we have, under these circumstances, but they're gonna say, well, we don't know what the circumstances are yet. When you know the facts, we'll give you an opinion. I don't think they'll give us a hypothetical, that's just my opinion. But if you went to them and said, we now have we have a charter ordinance and we had the referendum, do we have to allow nomination papers to go out December 1st? They may give you an opinion then. Okay? We can ask, I just have a hesitancy, we would do the research, and part of the research would be to reach out to the staff at the election.
To see what their view of it is.
to see what they think.
Right.
I just think they're gonna say, don't come to us with that issue until it's an issue. If nobody asks for a referendum, this is moot.
Right. Well, and we'd be spending money on attorney's fees to research something that may be on November 3rd. Why did we do that?
Yeah,
No one's filed anything.
might be irresponsible.
So I say just, we'll go with the November 16th start date, post the job, start interviewing, and if there's no petition, there's no petition.
All right, now, back to my question about running the referendum. You know, putting in the date, November 16 or June 15 is pretty easy to write in the ordinance. My question goes to, if there is a petition for referendum and we run it on February 20th, or we run it in April, whatever, I guess if, well, maybe
Is there any law?
there,
that
and
dictates the timeframe on
it
that,
passes so that if we run the referendum on February 20 and it passes, so the ordinance does go into effect, and you just said, well, as soon as that election is certified, the charter ordinance is effective. Well, the positions are separated. Well, how do we, then we get into this, do we interim appoint somebody? We have to me, a hiring problem because we haven't hired anybody. And how can we? I suppose we could, set the referendum on the primary date and, to your point, start the process. It's after tax time. And if it passes, then you're ready to go. And you tell the candidates that, well, we'll know on election day whether it passes or not, and then you're gonna start after it's certified on whatever date it is. I suppose.
But you're really banking on somebody filing a petition, I just don't know that.
No, I'm trying to make the charter ordinance self-affecting, so that there isn't any ambiguities or gaps, on the what-ifs. I don't know. Well, I have no idea if there's gonna be a referendum or not, but there's no one's even thinking about it until they see what we do. We don't do anything, there's nothing to think about. If we do something, then they'll think about it.
But looking at all these permutations, we can go on forever. And I think we'll have to deal with these things as they come before us.
But I don't know how
We've
you deal
already
with it.
anticipated.
I don't know how you can deal with an effective date. Sorry, I overtalked you. Sorry, trustee.
Well, and I'm not, this is a policy decision, but practically speaking, who's gonna apply for a job if they don't know they got a job? I mean, I'm gonna tell you that Waukesha got one application, and she basically said,
For the position of,
for clerk treasurer. There is a real, there aren't many experienced clerk treasurers who jump ship unless the salary, and they paid top dollar to get this woman. I don't have the dollar amount in my head, but I can, it's public knowledge. There just aren't a lot of people, especially in the middle of this election, that are looking to move or transfer or switch. Now, that shouldn't necessarily play into it, but if you're thinking about experienced people, they're all just working, the treasurers are all working on budget, and the clerks are all working on the presidential election. So you're gonna be asking people to submit resumes if you're going with the November date in the middle of all of that. Right? I mean, have you considered that? That's just a fact.
Waukesha, they posted that position?
Oh, for weeks.
They did post it.
And Kathy called all over the place, everybody she knew, because she wanted to find a good person to come in and fill her shoes. She didn't want to leave them high and dry. She was just, they for reasons, they took away she stepped down as administrator, and so when she got an opportunity to get an administrator position, she applied for it and took it. But she's got no hard feelings for the village of Waukesha. She's gonna help us out any way she can over in Lisbon. Does that make sense? It wasn't like she left on hard feelings or stuff like that. It was just a great opportunity, so she took it. You know, it's a huge step for her. But I'm telling you, they had 2 applications, and the one woman, all right, I'll start over. They had 3 applications. 2 were experienced. 1 had no municipal experience. 1 withdrew. They were gonna hire 1 as the clerk treasurer and 1 as the deputy, and one of them withdrew before the time came for selection. So they talked to the other one. They're paying her a lot of money, and she talked a friend of hers to come over from another community to be the deputy. That's where we're at the moment. That's all public knowledge. I'm not
Yeah.
divulging things
And I
from
seen it-
a
seen it
closed
was in the
session.
paper.
Pardon?
It was in the paper.
Okay.
It was in the Freeman.
Did they have the salary in there?
I believe they did. It was significant. Let's put it that way.
What do you consider?
I was.
What is considered
Over
sig-
60.
60? Okay.
I think it was in the Well,
Is
what
it?
was it?
Is it that high, Karen? I know it was a significant, I opened my eyes, I thought, holy smokes. She had to be either qualified or she had a good gun, held them up good.
Okay, John, so if we say something, I'm looking at 58, to get to the point here, 58-3.5A in our charter ordinance, the second, third sentence. The clerk treasurer office shall be separated into 2 separate positions as set forth herein, effective on, we can say November 16th, we can say June 15th, or, and I'm gonna say this out loud, or if a referendum is requested as set forth in section 3, which is 60 days, you've got that in there, on the 75th day after the effective date of this charter ordinance. That'll give you 75 days to hire. And then say, after such date, the offices of clerk and treasurer are hereby deemed incompatible, and no person shall serve, just like it reads. Trustee Mahalik, does that make sense? So then it's, as soon as it says, makes sense, then we can fill in the date and take a vote.
What date are you proposing?
I'm thinking, why John's thinking.
Say again?
I'm thinking about what John just said about hiring them during an election and all that. I'm not, I hate, I was thinking more, we're gonna, if you're concerned about getting qualified candidates here in October, then to me, the next available date is February 15th. I don't think we should go out to June, so. So does that make sense?
As I said, it's a policy decision.
The wording.
Flush out the argument as to February. What, you would start after they've finished their budget and after they've finished the election.
After the election is done,
They might be looking for a
after the
job, so
budget
you'd
is
be
out.
posting, you'd be
Right.
sending it out about January 1st.
Right.
With a goal of having this filled. I mean, you can send it out earlier than that, but I'm not sure anybody's gonna look at it until after the holidays.
Right, it's hard to
Between the
hire somebody.
presidential and the
It's hard to hire
holidays.
somebody in December. You don't wanna hire in the middle of the tax season.
No, you're the only one, in all due respect, I haven't heard a
Okay.
single other person
All
concerned
right.
about the middle of the tax season.
All right,
I haven't said anything, but I am
No, I think it should be done before tax season.
before
right,
or after, but not during.
I don't think
right. Yeah, that's right. When I said before or after, that's right.
that's not
And I think trustee Dashik agrees too. She,
Not in the
her
middle of tax
suggestion is
season.
do it before.
Before.
Right.
So tax season for the most part is done January 31st?
Well, there's settlement dates, a
Is
little
this so
shortly after
locked in that
February,
you
isn't it?
Can't change it, say we post this job and we don't have any applicants. Can't we change the start date at that?
It's in the charter ordinance.
See, that's,
It's in the charter ordinance, and you can't change it for 60 days.
All right, well then
It won't go
reverts
into
back to
effect, it won't
elected no
change
matter
until
what.
60 days.
right. So that's an argument to make it a little late, to make it later.
Well, I can't take that position, because it's a policy decision.
Right.
Could be an argument to make it November 2nd, I don't, you know. I don't think it's an argument to make it later or earlier.
No, if you're saying, well, let's flush this. If the way I heard the question is, if we make it November 16th, and we can't, for whatever reason, find a qualified candidates on November 16th, what happens? Isn't that your question? Can't we make it later?
Can we change that start date at a later date? If we're not successful with finding candidates, what happens then? Why can't we adjust our start date after, keep looking? Or does it revert back to elected?
No, doesn't do that. So this is, the scenario we're in
It's
is,
only if
no
there's
referendum, no referendum is requested, okay, none. The charter ordinance becomes effective November 2nd. Inside the charter ordinance, there's a date in there, November 16th, let's say, that says, on November 16th, the positions
Okay,
are separated. So now you need
so if we.
an appointed clerk, you gotta hire a clerk, and you gotta hire a treasurer.
And
so,
if you haven't,
okay, and if you
You asked
haven't,
me a question, I want to answer the question. What happens if on November 16th, if that's the date you pick, you have not hired a clerk or a treasurer? The position is vacant and the deputies would have to do the duties.
Until you find somebody. Right, correct?
But I don't know who the deputies are, the deputy treasurer or the deputy clerk are. Deputy treasurer and deputy clerk are, but that's the statute. The statute says that if the position is vacant, the deputy is responsible to do the work. So you have deputy treasurer and a deputy clerk that would take over the position
And that would be on a temporary basis until you find a full-time.
until the position is full.
till the position is filled, it doesn't have to be a full-time
No,
position. Yeah,
or Phil,
Right.
choice of words, I just.
Yep.
So I think that's the legal answer to your question. I always like to answer the question before we go on to the next issue. You asked what happens if you haven't filled the position. The position becomes in existence on the date that you set, and if nobody's been hired to fill that position, it's vacant. Then the statute says the deputies, I believe, are responsible to do the work if the clerk or treasurer aren't able to do their job. Right? I mean, that's what I think we all understand that that's the law, right?
That didn't happen in Watertown.
Pardon?
That didn't happen in the village of Watertown.
Well, everybody quit. There was nobody there to do it. You're right.
Who was doing the work?
Well, for 2 weeks, I guess the village president. I don't know. We had no contact with anybody.
don't look at me. Don't look at me.
You gotta get a skirt.
It's not a gender-based position.
The deputy treasurer left yesterday, and the new clerk's treasurer started today. And there was a woman who volunteered to come in and answer the phone, who had volunteered over the years to help out.
Okay.
So, but as for business occurring, the deputy treasurer made sure the bills were paid until yesterday. And I think it was yesterday, it may have been the 1st, And the new clerk treasurer started and deputy started today.
Still good with November 16th? Trustee Dashick, trustee Mahalik. Any change of view, trustee
No.
Wiley?
Nope, nope.
June?
Sorry, Jim?
June?
When you speak behind the mask, it's hard to hear you.
Yeah.
And when you're facing
I don't know.
Carl, I can't hear you.
Okay, so we will, all right, to move it along, okay, how should we do this? Should I just propose changing that sentence and make a motion to get it approved, or ask for a motion to get it approved with that sentence changed? I think we have to change the sentence, we have to fill in a date, if nothing else, John, I mean. So I'll propose changing that sentence to read, the clerk treasurer office shall be separated into two separate positions as set forth herein, effective on November 16th, 2020. Or, if a referendum is requested as set forth in section 3, on the 75th day after the effective date of this charter ordinance.
Only if the referendum, you added that.
Yeah, or if a referendum, is requested. If it's not, then, right?
And that's all fine and good, you can do that. But what message are you sending to your current staff? Is the election even gonna be over? If we have a recount in this election, you're gonna be switching your clerk in the middle of the election.
Possibly.
Yeah, if there's a recount. Is the election over November 16th? I mean, are all the paperwork filed that is closed out?
If there's a recall?
No, just normally, the November 16th date.
Only if there's a recount. I mean, sorry, it should be closed out, but there could be a recount.
Yeah, I would, on my end, it would be closed out.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you other things, you better make sure you know what you're doing, because if the clerk treasurer is separated, this clerk treasurer should say, I'm not doing the budget. It's not my job. The treasurer, I don't know, does the treasurer do the budget here, or does the clerk do the treasurer budget here?
The clerk, or the treasurer's never done budget.
Never,
Oh,
ever.
okay.
Never,
Okay. But they put
No, yeah,
together,
that's right, never.
never.
they put together the
Even
stuff
on the
for the
elected
tax
or whatever.
bills?
No, the clerk does that.
Okay.
Put together the what,
All
Bill?
the stuff for the tax bills, the treasurer doesn't do any of that. That's all clerk.
It's all the clerk. Treasurer just collects money and deposits money and statutory duties.
Statutory duties.
That's all that's ever been in Vernon, right? I think, statutory duties for the treasurer.
Makes a deposit once a week and collects the taxes, yep,
Right. Signs the checks.
yes.
Okay, are you making that motion, Mr. President?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Restate it again, Carol.
Okay. Just gonna make sure, so I think it's the third sentence and fifth.
Well, first, it's to adopt the charter ordinance as drafted with the following modification. Correct?
Right, adopt charter ordinance
02.
2020-02 with the following modification and I guess it's section 1, 58-3.5, separation of the clerk and treasurer office / treasurer office, third sentence. The clerk treasurer office shall be separated into two separate positions as set forth herein, effective on November 16, 2020, or if a referendum is requested as set forth in section 3 on the 75th day after the effective date of this charter ordinance.
Is that your motion?
And where did you come up with the 75th day?
I just made it up.
No, it's in the,
Well, it's as good as any.
Yeah, well, the only thing I was thinking is,
He's reading 3 point.
the only thing I was thinking on the 75 days is that as we just discussed, if we have the referendum, if somebody comes in and asks for a referendum, and it goes to referendum vote, and it passes, so this charter ordinance becomes effective as soon as that referendum is certified. Who's this clerk? Who's the treasurer? So I said, well, give the board at the time 75 days. Could be longer, could be shorter. I just said 75 days, kind of dovetailing in with the November 16th date, because here we're sitting today, 75 days from now is roughly November 16th. So I figured, well, 75 days is good right now, tonight. It should be good in February, it should be good in April, or whenever this election happens to be. That's where the 75 comes from. But, could be 90, I don't. I was just following the November 16th. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussions? If you think, if you want a different, if you don't like the charter ordinance at all, you're gonna vote no. If you don't like the date, you can vote no. Shoot down this motion and then make a new motion with your date in it. Okay? Not gonna hurt my feelings. So, any further discussion? What, yeah. Are we clear on what we're,
I would wait till we get this typed in.
well, yeah, you've gotta delete the, I'll amend, you gotta delete the draft off this version, of course, but.
Well, it's all kinds of changes, but she's gotta have the language written down. It's very important that you
Right.
said, or if the referendum is requested under section 3 or whatever you said,
Yes, that's what I said.
the 75th day.
On the
Because
75th day.
otherwise it's ambiguous.
Right,
If it doesn't have that section in there.
Right.
Or the 75th day after the effective date, the two aren't, it's not consistent. You
right,
can't-
so that's why I put that in there,
Right,
so that it would only apply if a referendum is requested.
right,
Otherwise, it's the November 16th.
right.
That's what I meant to say anyway. You think that's clear enough?
Yes, if
Okay.
we get all of that in there.
Yeah, and that's all part of the motion. It has to be in there. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, it's a charter ordinance. I think we should have a roll call vote.
President Grover,
Yes,
trustee Lincoln,
No.
trustee Gary Waddy,
No.
trustee Fred Mahalik,
Yes,
trustee Lorraine Dashick,
Yes,
okay, so it's adopted. America collection contract. Oh, sorry, let me stop this for a second. Attorney Macy, should we direct the publication or post publication of the ordinance by motion?
No,
Okay,
that's by,
by,
you'd bring a writ of mandamus if she didn't do it.
okay.
and then what happens if I get do they fire me?
Well, you don't have a contract, you can quit your review. Okay, so we are on number 6B, Amira collection contract and EMS medical billing. And, this has come to our attention, I think is probably the best way to say it, because we received an invoice from Amira Collection, and in your packet, there's an old agreement. And I looked at it and said, first of all, yeah, we have this agreement, but how did these accounts get sent to America Collect? And I take it they were sent there by EMS Medical Billings. And when I looked at and it's in your packet in payables.
Yep.
It's, well, it's not numbered, but, I mean, there's amounts due of $565, including, I do believe, from a Vernon resident, and so my first question is, well, how are they sending Vernon residents that we can put it on their tax bill through collections, and then us paying a 30% fee or whatever it is, 33% fee on collection? But the reason why it's on the agenda really is, well, we'll deal with the invoice that they sent us in payables. But the reason why it's on the agenda is, can we be terminating this? Or at least directing EMS medical billings to not, I mean, I don't even know how they have the right to even do that under our old contract if they're a resident. That's about all I know. Karen, I mean, I don't know what else to add to that.
We don't have a contract with the EMS medical building, and that's where they sent old debt, and that's where it goes. It's been there for a while. It must be there for a while. I just thought maybe when you saw your accounts payable, you'd have questions, so I resurrected the information for you to make a decision on.
Was this, has this been in effect since 2011, Karen? When I never saw a bill from these people
You had a contract with EMS
And
medical.
EMS
That was
did
all
the-
part of EMS. You no
Well,
longer.
They did the collecting.
Right.
Yeah, EMS medical building did, and then when they exhausted their resources,
Yeah,
it would go to AmeriCollect.
okay, all right. That's why we didn't see anything really from AmeriCollect, a bill from them or anything, because LifeQuest,
Because
They were
AmeriCollect would
EMS billing.
would bill EMS billing, EMS building
Okay.
would pay AmeriCollect,
just-
and they'd say, well, here's what we collected after the
Yeah,
collection fees?
yep. So we were not the middleman in that at all. Now we are.
But did EMS billings send out Vernon residents delinquent accounts to Ameritech? I thought that contract said they came back to here, to
Never
Vernon.
did. I don't think that,
It's there, and they collected some of it,
Yeah.
but- Well, do we know if they have any others? We don't, do we? And was it, as I recall, I didn't go back and check, but I thought on the transition in between EMS billing and LifeQuest, they were gonna turn over all those delinquent accounts.
yeah.
EMS wouldn't have them if they were at AmeriCollect.
Oh, they were already at AmeriCollect.
So we don't need to keep up this agreement with AmeriCollect then, do we?
You gotta give notice, and then you have to, request where they're at and get our delinquent accounts back and assign
Yeah.
them somewhere, or find another collection agency to try to collect, if we're not gonna use AmeriCollect.
No.
Doesn't the county do that? Doesn't the county do the collection for us?
Yeah, we have a contract that put that in your packet. We have a link through the town, and when I talked to them about, taking over AmeriCollect after they give notice, they
Could we,
said, of course, we do that. They work with both LifeQuest and
Oh.
AmeriCollect. But then they also included a new contract with the village, but you currently have one with the town, in the county.
would it be to our advantage to go with the county versus this one here? Do you think the fees are we gonna lose money, let's put it that way?
When it gets to that point, you don't have a lot of options.
Okay. You just can get what you can. and hope they can collect something.
Well, if they're a resident and the amount they owe is for a service provided by Vernon, like, EMT service,
Typically, they're not.
they're not. But if they are, we can put them on their tax bills, but,
We get incentive to the state, we don't get it from the state.
all right.
For the trip fund? It's usually people that don't have money and.
Yeah. Or they
Alright, so
just.
let me make sure I understand this. Does the fire department still at all send out a bill or anybody? So, all the billing is done through LifeQuest,
LifeQuest.
and we recently switched to LifeQuest, correct?
Yes.
So, they do a service, they send the information to LifeQuest, and LifeQuest sends a bill. They're not a collection agency, they only go so far in trying to collect the money under their procedures.
Right.
When they've exhausted their procedures, they send it, the EMS billings, to Ameritech. They sent everything else gets sent to the county. And the billings that we do here internally, if you don't collect it and can't put it on the tax bill, you send it to the county. Right? Everything but EMS billing goes to the county. If you don't collect it, or,
The board sends it, I don't send
okay, well, I'm sorry, the village, okay. So we have EMS billing and all other billings. EMS billing, and I assume all the other fire department billing, or just EMS billing?
it. EMS, goes to AmeriCorps, yep,
No, goes to LifeQuest.
no.
EMS billing?
No.
EMS is one ambulance billing service, LifeQuest is another. EMS would collect, couldn't collect anymore, go
What,
to AmeriCorps.
EMS?
Okay.
Who was EMS?
Okay,
It was our old billing service.
Our
The
old.
old billing.
they stopped billing December
And who took over for
15th,
that?
right, December 15th,
LifeQuest.
right,
LifeQuest, so now we only have LifeQuest,
Yep.
Yes,
right.
who does the EMS billing.
who does the ambulance, yes.
Who does any other fire department billing? Or is there never anything other
No.
than ambulance or EMS?
That's it. We do all our other work internally.
That's what my point is. So EMS billings goes to LifeQuest, they exhaust it, and then it goes to Ameritech. And Ameritech, that's the issue right now, is whether you're satisfied with the services of Ameritech, right?
No, I don't know if that's right. I mean,
I thought these are huge bills that you've never seen before from Ameritech.
We don't have a list, nobody's seen it.
But what's in the pack?
okay, what,
Three bills. I have no idea how many outstanding bills. When this board stopped the contract with EMS Medical Building, there wasn't any request for that information to be extended. I didn't see any request for that.
No.
So that's why you're seeing the bills now, is they're collecting under the contract that they have with the town to collect those outstanding debt at a fee, which the county would charge a fee also.
Right. What we
Okay.
have to determine is the fee.
We haven't gotten to the point where LifeQuest is at that stage of old debt yet.
right, so after December 15th, 2019, LifeQuest took over billing for new
Ambulance.
ambulance, paramedic, EMT runs. Okay. Any runs before December 15th or backward, I forget which, December 15th, which side it fell on, but EMS Medical Billing Company billed and tried to
But both
collect
of them, when they reach
a dead
dead,
end.
they can't go any further, they
Yeah.
send them to Ameritech.
Is that,
Only EMS Medical Building.
only EMS
not
Medical Billing,
LifeQuest.
not LifeQuest.
LifeQuest does not use AmeriCollect.
Who does LifeQuest?
Well, it was an unwritten understanding that they would send it to the county. You remembered that, Carol?
Yeah, I remember that. I thought they were supposed to send to the county. You say it's
Okay.
unwritten, but maybe it is unwritten. I don't know. I thought that was what we agreed to, or what the board wanted to do, send it to the county.
It was.
You remember the same? You weren't on the board. You might not have been on
I
the board.
think, I think Alex remembers that too. Feldy, the chief? That they would go to the county? because we had a
I was
had a
trying to
contract.
simplify it and because of what you told me at the staff meeting, but apparently I'm not simplifying it.
Right.
So all Ameritech has is all the old
Yes,
EMS billing
billing.
services that EMS billing couldn't collect.
I think that's right.
So it could be next to nothing.
Could be. We don't
We
know.
don't know. Because we haven't got any documentation from them.
But nothing new is being sent to them.
No, nothing new.
Nothing new.
Which is a good thing there.
And so do you need the contract?
We probably should request to see what they have,
Yeah.
or terminate
Okay,
it.
so you wanna table this matter and direct this,
Direct the clerk treasurer to,
find out what they have?
Yeah.
find out what accounts that they have they're still trying to collect.
Yeah. That's a good way to start.
Okay, so do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion that the clerk follow up with, Norfolk, find out just how many outstanding invoices there are with billings for the correction.
To table the matter and direct the clerk to do that. Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
For my memo, I was told that the next matter is on for informational purposes only, so that you knew what your current contract was with the county. Okay? There's no action was contemplated on that. But the next item is if you wanna update the contract with the county, the clerk got the updated contract, changing it from town to village. So you would, then the county is prepared to, Karen, I assume that the town contract will be terminated upon adoption of the village contract.
Correct.
Does anybody know any reason you wouldn't wanna switch to the village contract with the county? You're satisfied with their services, and now LifeQuest is sending everything, and then every bill is going to the county after LifeQuest
Exhaust
fails to
their,
collect it, exhaust their, or the staff here exhausts their availability to collect it.
right. Yep.
So it would seem to me you'd want an updated contract with the county, and Karen's indicated to me, I've already reviewed it, that there's no changes from what I reviewed.
Right, and Corp Council won't make any changes. Just so you
It's
know.
always a problem.
Right. Well, they wanna have standards.
So it'd be a motion to terminate the town contract and enter into the village contract with the county.
With Waukesha County. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there,
That motion.
second by trustee Dashik. Further discussion, everybody understand what's going, okay. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Letter E, appointment to the Personnel Committee of trustee Jim Slaney. I will make a motion to appoint trustee Jim Slaney to the Personnel Committee.
I'll second that. Oh, I should have let you.
Discussion? Mr. Slaney, you're willing to accept it?
Oh, yes.
It was my idea, so I'm all in favor.
Sorry, I stole it.
How many do we have?
I should have let you made that motion, but we're
Yeah,
trying
and
to
I
get
shouldn't
going.
have, I should have let her second it at
Yeah,
least.
that's all right. For any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll abstain.
You look, with trustee Swanee abstaining. Trustee Wildy,
Yes.
letter F.
I talked last time in regard to getting a disinfectant or a fogger, and Karen has got a price here, and I believe it's in the APs for tonight. Is it? Nope.
Oh, you just requested it to be on the
Okay.
agenda.
But this is the information then?
That's what the fire department bought.
Okay. And if they're happy with it, it should work pretty well for us. I think one of the DPW guys could come after a meeting or before a meeting and fog the place down real good. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Alex, but, I'm sure that what they bought is significant in regard to taking care of any kind of problems. So I would like to see us approve this purchase of this machine.
For what it's worth, we're using one of these at our parish, and it's wonderful. The guy
Oh.
walks around with it over his head.
Okay,
How does he do it? He precedes it, and it fogs, and he can do the whole gathering area, public facilities in 5 minutes. Now, that's not
That's-
as big as this. Sorry,
No,
it's
not
bigger
anywhere
than
near.
this. So
But
it's a good idea.
and who knows how long we're gonna be exposed to doing this sort
Well,
of
and it's
thing.
not a bad idea to
You know.
use it anyhow.
Yeah. And if it cuts down on any
What is the cost,
possible
Gary?
problems, it's well worth the money or the investment. And I guess it's a machine that comes with, you buy the tablets and you put 2 tablets in the thing and then water and, it just like your fogging machine for your insects or something like that. It works the same general principle. Heats up, melts the tablets and disinfects everything.
Gary, what's the cost?
$787.67.
Now, the fire department has one, why can't we use that one or share it?
Yeah.
It would,
We needed it every morning and every night.
yeah,
I don't
we would
think
have to almost,
And they're doing
Oh,
all
and
their
they're doing there
ambulance,
too.
all their
yeah,
fire trucks, all their,
it's almost more practical, I
Frequency, yeah.
think, to have our
and
own.
this would qualify under the grant, so you'd be
Yeah.
reimbursed for it anyway.
Oh.
I was gonna ask that, thank you.
Oh, it would apply for?
Yeah, we don't have one. And
Okay.
it's COVID related, so
All right,
whoever writes that grant can put that in there.
good.
John,
that
you'll
we
find
get
it
reimbursed
real easy
for
to
it.
use.
Well, then I'd make the motion that we purchase this, item from Stanicare for the purchase amount, invoice, or the price of $787.67.
And I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. Correspondence. Item 7, Village Board, we'll start with Trustee Swanee.
We've already taken care of getting Jim woodworking on the docket. So that was one big thing. And I had another, no, not for you. Well, yeah, I had 2 other residents talk to me. One was about the cemetery. Lady wasn't happy with our work, or we haven't gotten up there yet. If I remember right, you told me you couldn't get up there with the equipment at the time.
This is Dodge's Corner Cemetery?
Yeah, one
Yeah,
down.
the one here.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
You know what the status is?
Yeah, I was up there today cleaning some brush out on the stairs. But yeah, there's work to be done up farther up. Like I said, we can't get the equipment up there till the crops come off the backfield, so for the bigger jobs.
Okay.
Some trees and stuff up there.
I think she talked to you as well, from what I understood, so,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And then the other one was for our building inspector. We have that one issue where we've got one of our residents running the concrete business out of his house up on the end of Skyline. And he was working, I think, with Attorney Macy to get the, not a ticket, what did they give him, a citation?
Citations. Well, he was here 2 weeks ago waiting to get the information, and then the riots came in Kenosha, so this board will have to wait till he can come back and write the citations. We don't have law enforcement here, so that's why the citations haven't been written.
Oh, when you say he.
The sheriff.
It was the
sheriff.
actual sheriff, okay.
Yeah,
Not,
they have
not
to,
the sheriff,
Yeah,
but one of the
yeah, yeah.
deputies.
one
Yep.
of the deputies has to write the ticket, has to write the citation.
That's all I had for.
Thank you. Trustee Wiley?
I can't think of anything offhand. I haven't had any contacts with any residents, so no report at this time.
Trustee Mahalik.
Just a couple. I went across the bridge on ES that's, I don't know what, under refurbishing, I guess is the best word. And while it is a little bit of a wait, it's not terribly long. And if you are going to use, first of all, find an alternate route. But secondly, if you're trying to avoid it, certainly around rush hour, please remember your social distancing. And Highway 164, they're refurbishing it for sure, I know, to 59 to ES. And it's very difficult to cross. I don't know how best to describe it. If you get going in a northerly or southerly direction and you want to cross over, you won't find it possible, okay, without running over the yellow cones, sorry, the orange cones that they have. So, how should I say this? Plan your route on 164 carefully. That's all I have. Thank you.
Trustee Dashik.
Yes, I'd like to thank 3 residents that have decided to serve on the Personnel Committee and donate their precious time to serve on that committee. I don't know if I should name them.
Well, we named
But
them last week.
there were 3 residents that offered to serve.
DPW Director.
I guess one thing on Fred's comment about the ES traveling, I did get a call from the Heaven City restaurant regarding the traffic backing up there. When they stopped there, they were blocking their driveway, and they were not letting people in or out. So I called the county guys and it's running a project up there, and we got a sign put up there requesting do not block driveway. So as of now, I haven't heard anything from him, so I'm assuming things are a little better. But again, common sense was people were stopping, and we're just not letting traffic in or out there, which is pretty frustrating for him. So hopefully we get that resolved. We've been doing a lot of wrapping up some ditching, shouldering work yet on the River Oaks project. I've got, tomorrow I've got a vac truck from Muskego coming out to clean out a couple of our catch basins down near on Villa Drive and Edgewood Avenue. That's some drain catch basins that are pretty full right now. I'd like to get those filled, cleaned out before the winter months here. So I've got one, Dominic from Painted Dolan. I talked to him today. He's got scheduled hopefully for next week to finish up that appointment at 8:30 with one of the guys. So we're kind of waiting for some prices on that stuff too. So, and just one last thing about the fall brush pickup. Will be the first week in October, and it's going to be a drop off rather. I'm sorry. So we will have it a Saturday from 7 to noon, and then the whole week from the 5th through the 9th, we 7 to 3 drop off here, and then the following that Saturday also from 7 to noon on the 10th. So I see people are already starting to pile brush out, hopefully not assuming that we are picking up. So just want to clarify that it's a drop off only.
Right, consistent with what we decided earlier, much earlier.
Yeah, just follow up with John, the pickup is in spring for any brush that you may have, but you have to bring it to the town hall in the fall.
Correct.
So I just wanted to reemphasize that.
Bring it to the village hall instead.
And I'm still looking for some volunteers to run the gate there.
I worked on that last year. I'll get with you and set what my schedule looks like, John.
That'd be great. I got one other fellow, Mr. Pepper, said he would also help out, so.
Okay.
And John, when would you, sorry, is that enough?
Well, 7 to noon on Saturdays, right, the 2 Saturdays, and then 7 to noon, and then on the weekdays, if I could get somebody to watch the gate also, then I don't have to have one of my guys out there, so.
We're
It's,
much cheaper
7 to
than they
3
were.
I'm doing on the weekdays.
Anything else?
That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Clerk Treasurer.
Just wanted to let the residents know that this last mailing they got from the Wisconsin Elections Commission is from the state. If they have questions or complaints or issues related to that mailing, you really should call the 1-888 number to ask questions in that regard. I want to thank all the residents that are applying for registration online, and encourage residents to go to myvote.wi.gov for additional assistance with absentee voting. We have about 1,600 absentee ballots so far. And just a reminder to the board that the deadline, hard deadline on the newsletter is September 16th for the newsletter. And that's it.
Thank you. Finances, Jim's woodworking overdue invoice. Trustee Solani mentioned it. We did get some information in our packet. I do believe we're trying to schedule a date and time for Mr. Jim to come in to discuss his overdue invoice. So I don't think there's anything action needed tonight unless you wanted to add anything.
Well, I found it hard to believe that we were billing him with, taxes for a business that he hasn't been running. And of course, then that would trigger the question, how would we know that he's not running it? But, you know, to me, I think we really should wipe out those invoices, get them off our books, if that's legal to do. Because it's taxes past due from previous years. I don't know how if there's any issues with just saying, yeah, we were just kidding, and take those off the books. I believe you have a documentation that says that he's not in the business anymore,
Yes, I did.
right?
This year. And nothing was done for 16, 17, 18, and 19.
Was that just a lack of communication?
On his part.
I don't know, you have to ask the treasurer. I wasn't treasurer.
Oh, all right. Do you have any recollection?
He did not respond to Cal. When Cal sent out the paperwork that he was supposed to fill out, he just would not respond.
Just ignored.
He just ignored it. I called him, and Cal called him. He just would not respond.
That, in my opinion, okay, then I think, how can I say this? I think that due caution should be exercised in resolving this problem. Because if the man has not been cooperating with information that has been provided by the town, then I think greater scrutiny needs to be provided.
Well, and also, these are delinquent personal property taxes. And under the settlement procedure for property taxes, didn't Vernon send money to the school
Paid
district
bill. The residents paid his
and
bill.
Waukesha County and WCTC, and probably a little bit to the state of Wisconsin, if I'm thinking of my property tax bill correctly. State didn't last year, right? Right, but 16 and 17 they did. Yeah, right. And so it's not, you know, we're out of pocket. Our taxpayers are out of pocket.
He said he has paid it for a couple of years and then didn't, pay the bills.
Right.
Pardon me?
He's had a long history. We've had to take him to court twice.
The rest of the story.
Right.
This is under communications, I mean, we shouldn't be.
No, it's under finances.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're under finance, John, sorry. So 8A.
Sorry. I walked out of the- Okay.
And he does want to come in and talk to us, so,
Yeah,
yeah, I mentioned that you wanted it on, we put it on, and I
Mhm.
said, well, he's gonna come and talk to us, maybe we should just table it, but this is fine to talk about it ahead of time, but if we
right,
want-
because
if
like I
we
say, I've only heard his
decide-
side of it,
Right,
and it's a little different. But I know we would have paid out some monies to other people. That's why I don't know whether we can just write off the whole invoice or not. So I just like get that out, at least on the table for that. And he's coming in, what, on the 10th, was that?
He wants to come in, but his problem is he's a truck driver and he doesn't have set hours like you or
Right.
I do, so he has a time frame of 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock where he could come in, but you'd have to, I don't know how you'd work that out with, when you're working on the budget, but that's when he'd like to come in.
right, we have finance committee, joint finance committee and village board meetings for budgets, Wednesday afternoons coming up here, starting the 16th. Those are workshops, those we have, fire department in, DPW's in, Park and Rec is in, Clerk Treasurer is in, giving budget presentations. It's difficult. I understand his issue with his work schedule, but it's difficult with our schedule. Say, well, we'll just interrupt what we're doing and take you. So I'm not sure what to do other than to work with them. I mean, obviously, we try to work with our residents. But eventually, the board's gonna have to decide to take him to court or, forgive it, reduce it, settle it, something.
Well, I think the first move is to make sure we don't bill him anymore.
Yeah, but I think he did fill out his paperwork for 2020. I don't
Oh,
think he's
yeah,
gonna get his.
that I got straightened out
That
this
is-
year.
okay.
And I checked the tax roll, he's not on this, in 2020, he's not on
Right.
the next tax roll.
Yeah,
As long as he submitted the appropriate paperwork.
Well, I emailed that to the board also, and I did check the tax roll, he is not on this tax roll.
okay.
I double checked that, so.
And you could have resolved that all of those years, over and
Yeah.
over and over
Yeah.
again.
So Jim, this is the rest of the story.
He owes a total of $746.97 for the 4 years.
So I don't know if you wanna set a special date, because you also have another person that wants to come in earlier, can't come in on those finance dates, and doesn't wanna wait till the end of the month, because they won't be here. They've been waiting to resolve this since last November.
I'm sorry, Karen, how much is this for?
I don't know.
Oh, okay, all right, I thought you knew off
Well, and
there.
then we're off the agenda too to set that date, but.
When you were saying that you don't know what to do with him, if you were setting a date for Jim's woodworking,
Right, we could,
because you said you didn't wanna do it during finance and your budget.
well, we could, if we knew he was gonna be here at 1 o'clock, we could put him on at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, he doesn't have
But
that
he
type of
doesn't have
job.
that, he can't tell us that, but that's when he can make it. That's the difficulty I have with that. I was reaching for my calendar. If we were gonna establish another date and time, or at least propose a date and time, I mean, we've got Board of Review on the 14th, we're all gonna be here. And obviously, we could put him in a board meeting, as with the other person too. But I think we have some outstanding direction to schedule times and dates. from our last meeting. with the
For,
Church.
they're
Lutheran Church.
coming, the church is lined up. Just
Church is lined up.
Bosses, we asked them to wait again. No, they had a medical, well, whatever.
Well, let's, should we take no action?
Tonight, yes.
Okay,
You want me to try to line them up after Board of Review?
14th,
Yeah, if we can.
maybe that'll work out better in his schedule if you line him up for
After, because you meet at 1:15 for Board.
1:15 till 2 hours.
Well, you don't have to do 2
Well,
hours.
you don't have to do, but I'm just thinking what we have to do. It could be 3 o'clock or 3:30
Yeah.
by the time we're done.
Mhm.
So if you line them up for 3:30 or 4, we could do it on the 14th.
Okay,
Okay? Good? No need to do anything further? Okay, accounts payable.
Make a motion to approve the September 3rd batch 202-00903 in the amount of $75,999.63.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but
Thank you.
one discussion.
well, I want to make sure you saw my note,
Yeah.
no,
because if
this-
you approve that bill, that's a violation of your ordinance.
Which one is that? That,
Okay, so this,
The one that has no documentation.
Oh,
Yes.
there's one particular one for $542.80 in here.
okay, should take that out,
Right, so,
That's in the amount.
in the amount, yeah.
okay, but we got a motion on the floor, so,
I'll have to, I'll have to,
and you've
Retract
seconded it for discussion, you
For
said.
discussion,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
for
So should we
discussion.
vote this one down and get it, re-up the
yep,
motion?
yep.
So we can call the question on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay,
Nay.
Okay, so the original
Motion
motion
failed.
fails 4-1. Would you like to make,
yeah, then I'd make the motion to approve the bills, at the exception of that, the undocumented invoice that's in there, and I don't know exactly what the figure is, Karen, but I think it's 700 or 500 and some dollars.
Your new amount would be $75,457.03.
Okay, that's the motion that I would make.
is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Also in that amount are, so everybody's aware, Ameritech. Yeah, that's the only one I would point on, Ameritech. There's others
I could-
issues in here, but I think those are best.
Well,
The
I
bills
got-
are owed, so I'm not gonna
I
judge.
have
just
a couple.
One question in regard to one bill.
Okay,
And I'm gonna talk to the fire chief in regard to that. We're paying Batzler to do the pest control up there, and why did he have to go to Home Depot and buy ant traps and Raid and all this other stuff, if we're paying a contractor to go in there on a monthly basis to,
To just inspect those traps.
yeah, and it said that they check the ant traps. Well, if they're putting ant traps in, why is he buying ant bait? You know, so I gotta talk to Alex and find out what the story is on this here, you know, it seems like a duplication of effort. It's not much money, but it's
It's the principle.
the idea, you know, it's $19 and some odd cents that he spent for Raid and stuff, but has he got other insects in there that the Batzler can't control? So that's my only discussion on the bill.
Then I go to the Aramac. I have a duplicate, sorry, I have two different invoices, but I only have I have two copies of the same invoice. I'm presuming that
Two
that's,
different dates, Fred. Oh, those are weekly.
no, this is Aramac. They,
Oh,
and Joel's 5936, I don't want to, so I'm not sure what that is, but we don't have the proper invoice. And then the other one, maybe somebody's arithmetic, mine may be bad, but on the Conway Shield,
Yeah.
and Mary, it shows here 1126.58. As I added them up, it was 1143.58. So I didn't know if maybe I missed a credit, I don't know. This is on Conway.
Boundary, that's fire department.
Is that who it is, Conway?
Yeah, fire
Oh,
department.
there it is, fire department,
Boundary,
yes.
Yeah.
I usually don't look at the source.
So, pardon me, can we do these one at a time? Your first question was what?
Certainly, which one?
Aardmark, you said, I think?
Aramark. In my packet, there's two invoices that are listed on the register, and they're different, but in my packet, there should be two invoices, but in this particular case, the two invoices were the same.
What do you have, 45 and 45, or 84, 84?
40, invoice of 6455.
The ending number of the invoice, what do you have in your packet?
Oh, yeah, he's right, 1040, it is the same, Karen. Oh, no, that's
Okay.
customer, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to
I'm
tell the
sorry.
board,
Yep,
we
yep,
always
yep,
have the actual bills, but
Yep,
I'll pass these around so you can see the two different invoices.
Yeah,
Carol.
it is two different
Oh.
invoices.
Yeah, I thought they were two,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought there were two different ones.
Yep.
But and the reason I say that is because they're dated, one's dated August 19th and the other is dated August 26th.
Right.
The customer number, of course, is the same, that's us. Invoice number, well, in my packet, the invoice numbers are different.
You have 45 and 84?
This just may have been a copying thing.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, one is 584 and the other is 455.
What do you have, Jim? And you don't have your, Gary, what do you have in
It
your
could be.
packet?
Yeah, it just could have been copying.
Yep. It's the same amount because it's a weekly.
Yep.
Yep,
And then Karen, if you could just
I
have
looked
some,
at the Conway Shield, I don't see any issue with that, except for,
it's just the addition. How much, at Conway, it's showing 1126, and as I added it up, it was 1143, but I didn't see a credit in there, which would have caused that to be different, so.
Shield.
I don't see where the map is.
Okay, Conway Shield. The only thing I noticed there is one of the invoices is from 2019.
Say again, Carl?
That's not my fault.
Yeah, that's submitted extremely late. One of the invoices dated November 11th, 2019, and
Yes.
for the amount of $417.78, right? And then the next invoice is February 7th, 2020, another late invoice for $93.80. And then another one for June 30, 2020, another late invoice for $360. And then
see a pattern here.
a current invoice dated August 13th, 2020, for $255. So when I added it up to the front page, so,
Me too. I don't know where your map is.
so where are we?
My math is not
Where are
right.
we?
That's my math.
Oh, it's your math?
I'll give it credit for my math.
Okay,
15, 10.
that's why I like to take them one at a time, get them resolved.
Does somebody have the earmark bills? Can I have them back?
Yes, I have them right here. I separate them from my stack.
But I need them back.
Oh, you'll get them back.
John? Yeah. Run them over.
Can you grab
We
the
can stay
checks too,
on,
John? from
stay,
the- the
stay on
checks?
track here. Trustee
That's it,
Mahalik,
just- Yes,
are we good on Conway?
yes,
Okay, do we have another one then?
not for me.
I got lost,
I'm
sorry.
good.
Sorry,
I'm fine.
okay. Other issues? So, on the revised motion that's been made, and I can't remember who made it and seconded it right now.
Yeah, and in my case, it didn't change dollar amounts, other than what I had brought up on my math, okay?
Okay, okay. Any further discussion? So we've got a motion to approve batch 2020-0903 in the amount of $75,457.03, which excludes the invoice of $542.60. And that's been seconded. Can't remember by whom.
Fred.
Fred. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll oppose it. Motion carries 4-1.
You oppose it?
Yeah, manual checks. We have a manual check request. This is for Metro Sound and Video, as you remember at our last meeting, and I did save it somewhere. We did approve that proposal to update our video equipment and provide audio and video to an overflow room in the DPW garage. And I think they are trying to get us in at the end of November, beginning of November.
Yep.
After the election. And part of that contract, I do believe, is 50% deposit. So that's what this check is. We want to make sure we stay in line and get it done by the end of the year. A lot of this will be COVID grant equipment.
All of it will be.
All of it, sorry. So I'll make a motion to approve that manual check request in the amount of $9,960.
I'll second that.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of village board minutes. You did receive some revised minutes. I read through them and had some changes to them. Minor changes and made sure that motion was done how I intended it to be done anyway. So I will make the a motion to approve the Thursday, August 2020 Village of Vernon board minutes as presented this afternoon.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion, further changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain, one abstention. Trustee Dashick was not present at the meeting. So motion carries. 10, next village meeting dates. I'll read them. Village Plan Commission, September 9, 7 o'clock. Board of Review, was adjourned and then further adjourned to September 14th that's Monday at 1:15 in the afternoon. Village Board, 2 weeks from now, September 17, 7 p.m. We have Village Board and Finance Budget Workshops, September 16, 23, and 30 at 1 o'clock, although I do think the 30th is going to be pushed back probably to 1:30. Village Board, now we're into October 1 and 15. Village Plan Commission, October 14th. It's just the October calendar falls. And we did talk about moving Plan Commission to October 7, but Sean Malarkey cannot make it, so we're keeping it as is. Staff meeting, October 15th, 12:30 p.m., and then Karen sent an email for that earlier. So we're on to number 11.
May I question something? Don't we have something in the evening of the 14th? Just committee, so that's not in here.
Right. Committee meetings are not on here unless they're joint with the board, like the Finance Committee. Number 11. I will announce and read the motion to go into closed session. Consideration and possible action on a motion to convene into executive session under Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85(1)(e), deliberating of negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically shared services with the villages of Big Bend and Waukesha and the town of Mukwonago, in a cooperative plan with the village of Mukwonago and the town of Waterford, and Wisconsin Statutes 19.85(1)(g), conferring with legal counsel or the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, more specifically Scenic Ridge of Big Bend Homeowners Association. Included in closed session will be the village board, village attorney, and village clerk treasurer. Motion will require a roll call vote. No action will be taken in closed session. I will make that motion to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second?
Any-
President, oops. Are you asking for discussion? I'm sorry.
Yeah, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
President Carl Fortner?
Yes.
Trustee Jim Slaney?
Yes.
Trustee Gary Wildy?
Yes?
Trustee Fred Mahalik?
Yes.
Trustee Lorene Dashick?
Yes.
Mr. President, your board has voted unanimously to go into closed session.
Thank you. We're in closed session. We'll take a 5-minute break. Strict 5-minute break. We'll be back at 18 minutes after 9.